Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. The 2022 death of a woman in police custody in Tuktoyaktuk was accidental. That is the finding of a coroner's inquest into the case of Sylvia Banaktalak. The inquest ended today in Inuvik. Banaktalak died in RCMP custody in Tuktoyaktuk in 2022 after being arrested while intoxicated. A jury of 6 Inuvik residents was tasked with giving conclusions about what caused her death and making recommendations to prevent similar deaths in the future. They found that she died of alcohol poisoning and that it was accidental. They made 11 recommendations, including that the government of the Northwest Territories work to get an ambulance and sobering center for Tuktoyaktuk, and that all health centers in the NWT get breathalyzer machines. Today is 2 weeks out from municipal elections across the Yukon. In Whitehorse, the Chamber of Commerce will host a candidate forum tonight. Cheryl Kawaja has more on the race ahead.
One thing that will be different this time around with municipal elections in the Yukon is that the term is longer. So politicians elected this month for mayors and council across the territory will serve 4 years instead of 3. Now, when we're looking at Whitehorse, there's a long list of people vying for those seats. So we have 5 people running for mayor. They're going to face off tonight in a debate, as well 18 people presenting for council seats. Now, many of those people are new to politics. There are not a lot of incumbents. And so tonight will be a chance for them to talk about their views and issues that they feel are important to the city of Whitehorse. Now, as I walk around downtown, I heard a lot of different opinions about issues that the city should be looking at.
Yeah, public safety and policing in the downtown core. You know, public waste, municipal waste, recycling, that sort of thing.
I'd like to see a safer city, actually.
We need more senior housing, desperately. We need more low-cost housing, desperately.
Housing is a big issue for around Whitehorse.
So tonight will be a chance for people to hear where these candidates stand on some of those issues. Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Scientists don't know a whole lot about what wildfire does to arsenic. It's something that became top of mind in Yellowknife when last year's wildfires threatened the city and the contaminated land around it. Now, it's something a small team of researchers are trying to understand better. The CBC's Leanie Lambrink has that story.
And then you just hammer it straight into the ground vertically.
This is how you take a soil sample, a key step in measuring how much arsenic is in the ground at this research site west of Yellowknife.
I've taken 25 samples from this burned site, and then from our comparable site that's unburned, we took another 20 samples to compare the metal and metalloid concentrations in the two.
Mike Palmer, a local scientist, spotted this area while returning home from last year's wildfire evacuation. He was wondering what the fire had done to arsenic in the ground and the water, and realized this site near Boundary Creek would be a good place to find answers.
We have this area that was intensely burned behind us, and then across the road we've actually got an unburned area. So it's a really nice spot where we can contrast processes in burned landscapes versus unburned landscapes. That organic layer and those surface soils they've actually been burned off. So that's either the metals and the other contaminants that are associated with that layer here they've either gone to the atmosphere or they've resettled as ash, where then they're then available to be, they can migrate down in the soil column when there's water mixed with them, or they can run off the soil column.
Palmer and Earnshaw Osler aren't just studying the soil. They're looking at the water, too. The land might be dry now, but these researchers expect runoff water to flow into a nearby creek come spring. They've set up equipment to monitor that, which will capture how much water is moving and how much arsenic is in it.
And so we can estimate the number of kilograms or grams of arsenic or cadmium or antimony that are moving off the landscape here per unit area versus the same thing in an unburned area.
All of this will give the scientists a sense of what happens to arsenic when it's burned by fire, how it might change or where it might end up. Palmer says these questions are top of mind near legacy mines, especially with wildfires expected to become more frequent and severe. Those fires move a lot faster than the science does. Palmer expects to share results from the study in 2 years. Lainey Lambrink, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Burgundy Diamond Mines has switched gears on its plans to expand underground at its Ekati site in the NWT, even though it's said in the past that its entire business hinged on the expansion. The decision came just today before a hearing scheduled with the Wakazi Renewable Resources Board, and the same day that the company's president sent a letter to the Premier of the Northwest Territories and Indigenous leaders. In it, Kim Trudeau said that, quote, onerous regulations and a, quote, inflexible government are what's holding the company back from operating into 2040. Former NWT MLA and longtime mining watchdog Kevin O'Reilly has been following this story. He says the territory's regulatory system provides clarity and certainty for companies.
The boards have spent a lot of time developing guidelines, reference bulletins, publications, plain language materials. There's system navigators now working within the government of the Northwest Territories to assist mining companies. I'm not sure how much more work can be done to explain why we do things the way we do here. We do things differently by design. This is part of constitutionally protected land rights agreements that have been negotiated with Indigenous governments. We have an integrated system. It's an ideal system. That's what you really want. Can it be done better? Sure, that's the function of an environmental audit. But I don't agree with their assessment. And we have this system in place, and it does provide greater certainty and clarity. Yeah, there's things that could be done better and differently. But if you want an example of an area where there isn't any certainty, go to the Ring of Fire. There's no new mines there, and there will probably never be new mines there until a whole raft of issues are dealt with. But our system does provide clarity and certainty. It's integrated, and it's different by design. It's what people asked for here, negotiated in constitutionally protected land rights agreements.
That was former NWT MLA and longtime mining watchdog Kevin O'Reilly. The Sahtu Secretariat passed a resolution last week recommending that organizations and governments call their language by its proper name. It happened on the final day of the Sahtu Secretariat annual general meeting. Directors voted to recommend that governments and other organizations no longer call the language by its old name.
The government and everybody else refer to the language as North Slavey. But it's always been a word that we kind of don't like because, simply because it says North Slavey. So fast forward to today, last few years we've been trying to change to a simple term that identify us from the region, the Sahtu region. So today we like to use the word Sahtu Denekede.
The NWT Languages Commissioner says she's not received this recommendation yet, but she is willing to assist. A Manitoba man has been exonerated in a grisly murder 50 years after he was sent to prison for it. Clarence Woodhouse was one of 3 men convicted, and he was the last one to have that conviction overturned. The CBC's Cameron McIntosh reports.
Manitoba's Chief Justice is calling Clarence Woodhouse's 1974 conviction for murder a miscarriage of justice, agreeing he was wrongfully convicted. Woodhouse, now in his 70s, stepped out of court in Winnipeg today with his lawyers and family, holding a black T-shirt saying innocent, along with a written statement from the court.
Because he's being acquitted.
Woodhouse served 12 years for the stabbing murder of a man in downtown Winnipeg. Innocence Canada brought forward evidence Winnipeg police fabricated a written confession in English that Woodhouse, who spoke mostly Saulteaux at the time, did not understand. This summer, the federal justice minister ordered a new trial, agreeing evidence suggested a miscarriage of justice likely occurred. The Crown concluded the original evidence wouldn't support a retrial. In court, the Chief Justice apologized to Woodhouse and called him innocent.
What did you think of what the judge said to you today?
Yeah, it was all right, yeah. pretty good.
And what did you say to him?
I told him I thank him.
The Crown, Ms. Jules, and we, and indeed the Chief Justice, all acknowledged that there was racism inherent from the investigative stage, the prosecutorial stage, and the judicial stage.
I'm very sorry for what happened.
Manitoba's premier met with Woodhouse. An apology was also read in the legislature.
We'll never be able to give back the past that was robbed of this person and the others in a similar situation. But given what we know now, we can take steps to do right.
2 other Indigenous men also convicted in this murder have also been acquitted. They're suing the city of Winnipeg, the province of Manitoba, and the federal government, claiming the police and the Crown colluded against them. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
He was completely unaccountable.
Prince Andrew never had somebody say the word no.
The Queen adored him more than anybody else.
This whole story is about the abuse of power.
We've got emails, we've got photographs, we've got witnesses.
Wow. Ordinary people turn a small investment into big bucks.
I'm in it to win it.
Do you think Mummy and Daddy are going to double their money? That's what I thought.
Why, hello.
You want it? I got it.
This is so cool.
Focus, focus, focus.
Here we go.
Oh, imagine how good the TV's gonna look now.
Good God!
This is incredible.
Did you know this?
As if.
Could the pressure be any higher?
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
Cost of living hurts everybody.
Connecting politics to people.
Win, win, win.
We are not going back.
Sundays, join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
All of this, just single detached homes?
Yes.
What do we know? I think we can explain.
About that with Andrew Chang. Watch free on CBC Gem.
It's got to come from the heart.
I will cry. You're so together.
How much more connected do you want to be?
See you there.
Guess what? Pinch me. Yes!
The 3-day strike by port workers in Montreal is over, but the dispute behind it is no closer to resolution, and shipping is also being affected by other issues. The CBC's Scott Peterson reports.
This 3-day strike was supposed to be a warning shot over the bow of the Maritime Employers Association in order to bring both sides together and sort of highlight the members' concerns here. But what this means as of this morning, that all 1,200 port workers are back on the job. They want a 20% pay hike over the next 4 years, and so far the Maritime Employers Association not budging. They're saying, quote, that the mediation process is failing to produce results. QB members have been without a contract since last year, and they were ordered back the last time there was a dispute here back in 2021 by the federal government, and union membership with CUPE say that there's still the same issues with wages and benefits still unresolved and are still currently on the table. Federal mediators are hoping to meet to bring both sides together on this, but so far, according to the Port Authority of Montreal, about 11,000 containers have piled up, not reaching their markets, and economists are predicting about $91 million worth of goods are not making it to where they belong each and every day, but nothing like what potentially we're seeing south of the border. Those 45,000 dock workers are still off the job. That's affecting 36 ports from the eastern side and the Gulf side as well. A lot of container goods come in from the U.S., and about 40% of all containers that enter the U.S. come from these ports. The White House is also involved here, being with the election in just a few weeks, and the White House urging both sides to come together because this is affecting about $4.5 billion worth of goods on a daily basis, and that could be inflationary not just here, but for all goods coming to Canada as well. Scott Peterson, CBC News, Toronto.
A child has died from rabies after being exposed to an infected bat in northern Ontario. It's the first domestically acquired case of human rabies in the province since 1967. Health officials made the announcement today. They said the child woke up with a bat in the room. The parents didn't see any bites, scratches, or saliva, so they didn't seek a vaccine. The child, who was from Brantford, was in hospital last month, but no other details have been released. There have been 26 cases of rabies in Canada since reporting started 100 years ago. Some of those were the result of exposure to a rabid animal outside the country. All of the cases were fatal. Officials say rabies is still circulating. The disease can cause severe damage to the brain and spinal cord. Yukon's 2024 vaccination campaign is underway. Once again, COVID-19 is a major priority, but the territory is also focusing on RSV and flu shots this year. Dr. Sudit Ranade is Yukon's chief medical officer. He says the effectiveness of the campaign depends on how many people get the vaccine.
I mean, partly by uptake and partly by whether or not you're seeing at least the age groups and the groups that are recommended coming in for vaccination. So it's a bit of both of those things. And then on the end of the season, you're trying to see if there was any impact with respect to severity of disease. But you usually don't see much of that unless you're looking over many, many years.
Updated COVID-19 and flu vaccines are now available at select pharmacies in the Yukon. The RSV vaccine will be available starting November 1st. Breakfast programs for Nunavut students are boosting attendance and morale, but not all communities have access to the programs. The Breakfast Club of Canada provides support to 15 schools across the territory, and it's hoping to bring 9 more on board this year. But the organization says it's still not enough.
We're reaching approximately 2,400 students, but obviously there's still need there. There's approximately 45 schools across the territory, and we want to be able to support them all. So we know that there are still a significant number of students who aren't receiving the support that they need.
Baker says northern geography tends to bring challenges to the program. The remote nature of many northern communities affects the shipment of goods, the cost of growing local food, and storage capabilities. The Breakfast Club of Canada says funding remains one of the biggest challenges.
Our goal is to reach every school and every student across the territory. But helping those schools design programs that meet their local needs is really interesting, notably up in Nunavut, because those programs and those communities operate a little differently, obviously, than communities in large urban areas down south.
The organization also wants to integrate country food into its menu to help bring traditional knowledge back into schools. The city of Whitehorse has apologized for damaging memorial displays at Grey Mountain Cemetery. City staff did maintenance at the cemetery last weekend before the vehicle gate closes for the winter. Personal items were removed from grave sites and some were damaged and left in piles. Family and friends were dismayed when they visited their loved ones over the weekend.
I honestly was kind of taken aback, but I felt devastated. I just about burst into tears. It was just the casual nature of these objects that mean so much to people. Like there was a pinwheel, there was a porcelain statue of 2 children with an arm broken off, there was a hat. I mean, it's devastating.
A city spokesperson says the objects were discarded due to an internal miscommunication. City staff have been available this week to meet residents looking for discarded possessions. The cemetery's vehicle gate will remain open until Sunday. Parents in Fort Smith are frustrated that the community's arena won't open in early October as planned. That's due to ongoing repairs. The arena has been in operation since the 1960s. Carla Ulrich has more on what this means for families and the hockey community.
This is the third year in a row the arena hasn't opened on time because of system malfunctions, and frustration is growing amongst parents and ice users. Angela Marie is a Fort Smith mother of 2. Both of her children play minor hockey. Last week, she sent a letter to the mayor to express her disappointment. She says playing hockey boosts kids' fitness, overall strength, and social skills. Marie says kids are paying the price of those recurring issues. Emily Colucci is the Director of Community Services for the town of Fort Smith. She says the delayed opening of the arena has been frustrating for her as well, and that they are dealing with challenges posed by aging infrastructure.
The fire suppression system had a break in one of the sprinkler lines in July. And so while doing that repair and repressurizing the system, there were other spots that were identified that likely were high risk for failure.
Colucci says the town is committed to the community's well-being, and they are working hard to open the arena this year.
I wouldn't be in this line of work if I didn't care about recreation and health and fitness and the health and wellness of our community. We also want this equipment to work. We also want this infrastructure to work. It's literally what we focus on around the clock because we know that this is like a heartstone of our community.
Colucci says the repair work on the sprinkler system is nearly complete. The next step is bringing in a refrigeration technician to start up the ice plant, but there is no date for their arrival yet. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
For 65 years, West Baffin Cooperative has put Kingite on the map through art. The art studio currently has a presence in France and Korea, and now it's looking beyond. Samuel Watt takes a look at where the markets are.
Asia is the hot new market for Inuit art for West Baffin Cooperative's William Huffman.
I mentioned a couple of very famous Canadian artists from the South, and there's sort of blank look, and suddenly I say Inuit art. I said, I love Inuit art.
Much of that he credits to the Canadian government's campaign Blitz for Inuit art in the 1960s. Huffman is now doing the same as a delegate on 2 Canadian trade missions, taking him to Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, and Vietnam. Right now, the studio has exhibitions in France and South Korea. Kingite artists have also made a name for themselves south of the Canadian border, like in Seattle, where Nathan Germain sees a growing awareness about indigeneity around the world.
That I think is opening people's minds to the idea of not relegating it to a separate society.
On the other side of the states, Anne Lesk worries younger people aren't gravitating towards art. She's the co-owner of Alaska on Madison, an online gallery based in New Jersey.
The older generation of collectors is retiring, downsizing, and dying. And the younger generation has not really filled the ranks.
Huffman realizes times are changing, and so will they.
We have a lot of young people that we're cultivating, a lot of new voices, and those are unexpected voices coming from other places in the world.
To ensure Inuit art remains a strong international force for many more years to come. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
6 artists are on the shortlist for the Sobey Art Award, Canada's most lucrative prize in the visual arts. A survey of their work will be shown in a new exhibition that opens tonight at the National Gallery of Canada. Sandra Abma takes us there.
The 2024 Sobey Art Award exhibition is a snapshot of Canadian creativity. Artists from regions across the country displaying a range of artistic invention in ceramics, experimental film, and extraordinary beadwork, where tradition meets pop culture.
I am trying to bead the world right now.
There does seem to be nothing that Anishinaabe artist Nico Williams can't reinvent meticulously with tiny glass beads. From grocery flyers to flannel shirts to an orange safety fence.
You think about our ancestors beating the flowers from their surroundings that they found on the ground, and I'm literally beating the things that I find on the ground around me today.
The glazed ceramic creations from Vancouver-based Cree artist Judy Chartrand are colorful and inviting, but a closer look reveals darker themes of racism, poverty, and the experiences of Indigenous children in residential schools.
We all sat around my mom's feet, and this was her stories because she was in the residential school from age 6 to 18, so that's all she knew was this.
Herds of caribou roam a space created by Inuk artist Tagrilik Partridge. The Ottawa-based artist's multimedia installation raises concern about the impact of climate change on the northern animals Arctic Indigenous peoples depend on.
Reindeer and caribou are the source of sustenance and our culture and our whole existence in many communities across the circumpolar north. Specifically in Nunavik, where I'm from, there are 2 reindeer herds that when I was young, they were 700,000 strong animals, and now they've been greatly reduced.
The message is serious, but Partridge can never resist putting an element of humor in her work.
Well, on the parka, you'll notice that there are little bits of plastic hanging from the beadwork. Those are all pieces of CDs, and all the CDs are Céline Dion. And it is not disrespectful to her, it is in celebration of her, and I'm channeling her power.
The winner of the $100,000 Sobey Art Award will be announced on November 9th. The exhibition runs until April. Sandra Abma, CBC News, Ottawa.
Governor General Mary Simon invested 4 companions, 21 officers, and 29 members into the Order of Canada at Rideau Hall today. Canadian actress Sandra Oh was among those who was made an officer of the order. In addition to her stage and screen work, she was honored for her advocacy for the arts. Former CBC reporter Brian Stewart was also named an officer. He was one of the first journalists to cover the 1984 Ethiopia famine. Another CBC journalist, the Fifth Estate's Bob McEwen, was named a member as well. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes your world.
All right.
Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Dropping the 8 now. We're just approaching Gaza.
With local CBC Radio 1 Live to connect us closer to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On the CBC News app. Download for free.
Oh, imagine how good the TV's gonna look now.
And spoiler alert.
No! Don't panic.
Don't panic.
Cut to. Well, we're not cutting to.
What do ladies want to watch?
Look out! It's drama.
Oh, I'm ready for it.
Hi, friends. Guess what? Pinch me. Ooh. Mind blown. Yes!
I'm not a delicate lady.
I don't know who needs to hear this.
I had a man do an impression of me recently, and he lowered his voice, so...
What's going on upstairs for them?
I'm sorry!
Nailed it.
Your sister.
She tried to kill herself.
Mom showed me your suicide note.
Thank you for putting me on it. I was like 2/3 down the list. Feels like I was an afterthought.
Just didn't want it to go to your head.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
Cost of living hurts everybody.
Connecting politics to people.
We are not going back.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.